Hello everyone, today my little fam, say hi, and I are on the Bear Creek, what is it called? I just forgot.
It's by Bear Creek and the Briones Reservoir.
Bear Creek and Briones Reservoir, and we're going to do a little nature tour walk with you guys today.
First thing is this absolutely massive and gorgeous oak tree. And you see all these big clumps, boom, 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 boom. That's all mistletoe. And mistletoe is the thing that people put up around about this time of year. This is when I'm filming it, is right before Christmas. But you'll probably see this in February. But they put it up this time of year and they kiss under it. Which is very sweet. But the crazy thing about mistletoe is it's actually a parasite. So it is a plant, but it does not have roots like a normal plant, and it does not live in the soil. It lives in the canopies of the trees, and it will take its, I bet you they're called rhizoids or something similar to bryophytes, what bryophytes have, and they'll burrow their root-like structures into the branches of usually, or I see it mostly in oak trees around here, but in trees, and then it'll steal the sap and it'll basically live off of the tree, and the tree's doing all the hard work and the mistletoe's doing no hard work. The other cool thing we see is this branch right here with all the holes in it. And if you remember from last year, we thought it might be squirrels burrowing their acorns in the holes in the tree, but it was actually acorn woodpeckers, and they were putting their acorns in the tree. So my husband spotted this really, really beautiful spider web, and look how thin the little pieces are. So I guess the little threads of a spider web are called spidroins. Ooh, wow, I wonder who lives in there.
Look what I found!
Another one.
A big spider web.
That's really beautiful. We also just came across this little guy. A little dead mouse. And I'm gonna put him in. We actually bring bags and little tins with us to put anything cool that we find. And we're gonna bring him to our little nature shelf, our specimen shelf in the garden, so that you guys can see him up close. And we will preserve him in the isopropyl alcohol, the 97 or 99%. Look at these long lichen strands hanging in off of the tree and moving in the breeze. We looked it up and we don't know exactly yet. We're going to take a little bit home to kind of really properly identify it, but I think it's probably witch's hair or beard lichen, which is really fun. That tree back there has a ton. All of that's all lichen coming off.
Willow, look, the water looks a lot cleaner over there. Then what do you see around the edges here? You see all the stuff floating in it? Some ducks down there. Is that algae?
Yeah, I think it's probably algae.
Floating just around the edges where the water doesn't move as much. You get some of that greenish colored algae growing all the way around the edges of it.
And remember, the algae does a couple things. It photosynthesizes, provides a home, and it provides food. You know, we saw fish scales right when we walked in. We were thinking that that probably means that there are fish in there. This is an owl pellet. It's got some bones in it. It's definitely got that fur in it. No bonies. I don't see any skulls, but there's a vertebrae. I don't know what that is. Super cool.
Wondering if it was an owl. So we saw the owl pellet, and we're wondering if an owl, in fact, maybe tried to catch it and then it got away, or it dropped it. Maybe we could think of like an owl or like a hawk battle, like in the air, and one of them dropped it, or someone dropped the little guy, because he was right in the middle of the trail and just laying there. And we were probably one of the first people out in the morning. It was very early and very, very cold. So he probably got injured and then didn't make it. But I think, based on seeing a little injured mouse, seeing fish scales and see an owl pellet, that's a good indicator that there's owls there, which is really cool.
Swim in it now, because if we were swimming and we accidentally went poop or something, then the water would get kind of gross, and then it would go through people's faucets, and it could be.
This is in our backyard, you guys. This is in Orinda.
This is such a
We live so close to here. The school is so close to this beautiful area. So today we didn't go very far. We went from here to there. Then we actually walked down a little fake trail that way to the water edge, and it was really nice.
I feel those things that
Yeah.
And so where we went, and they were just noticing that there's lichens or bryophytes, can't quite see, maybe both, that are on where it says our sun and trail up there.
Hello everyone. Today we are in a little hike walk in Moraga, Orinda area in the Redwood Regional Park, and I found these really cool funguses that I wanted to show you.
Fallen piece of bark, and look at these really cool funguses. I'm gonna see if I can cut one open for you. They're old and dried out. Let's see. So there's nothing much going on with them anymore, but they looked really cool and warty. I'm not sure what kind they are. I will see if I can find their name.
Okay, so those black ball funguses their scientific name is Daldinia concentrica. Sounds fancy. And otherwise known as coal fungus, cramp balls, or King Alfred's cake. Why? I don't know.
Here's another really cool shelf fungi. There's tons of layers on it. White face. Again, I don't really know what this type is called, but I thought you guys might want to see it. And on the same tree here, you can see all the green are bryophytes. It's just absolutely covered. This whole area, all the trees are covered in bryophytes. They're not covered in bryophytes. Look at that tree, it's totally green. Covered, covered, covered.
So that fungus, the one that was big with the white bottom, is actually called an artist's conch. And basically it grows in old growth forests or on old trees. We found a couple of them and they were all on dead trees. So maybe the artist's conch killed the tree, or maybe the artist's conch just said, hey look, a dead tree. That looks like food. I'm not exactly sure if they're saprophytic, meaning they eat dead things, or if they're parasitic, meaning they kill things and then eat them. Interesting. But a cool thing about the artist conch, and this is not something we should do, but this is something that people do, which is they take the artist conch and they draw on it, because the artist conch is different than other funguses, right? Most of the time we think of a fungus, we think of mushrooms, right? With their caps, and underneath the caps are these things called gills, and they're these lines that hold their spores. Now we're getting way too in depth here, but we're gonna do it just for a moment. Now those gills hold the spores, and the spores are what the fungus uses to reproduce. Funguses don't use seeds, they use spores to make new funguses, right? Okay, now this type of fungus on top of the tree, or on the side of the tree, is a polypore, which means that it has pores, and the poly means multiple. So under this, on the underside of it, you won't see those gills. You're going to see a bunch of tiny, tiny little holes, and those are where the spores are kept. Polyporous shelf fungus holds spores. And what people do is they'll draw on that white underside, releasing those brown spores and kind of messing up the pores, and they will draw these intricate, who even knows what, pictures of birds and such, and then they will spray them down with like a clear spray paint and use those as decoration, which is kind of interesting. But we are not going to be drawing on funguses in the woods. We're going to let them be.
Fallen log, and look, it's covered in more shelf fungi here, but also on the other side. Now, these look like turkey tail mushrooms, but they're not. And I think they're the poisonous relative. And we definitely have this kind at the school, at the trees that are right behind the sandboxes on the big playground. Again, I'm not sure exactly what they're called, but I know that they are the poisonous version of the turkey tail. I'll have to get a book from the library to identify
So
them.
this guy that looks like a turkey tail mushroom is in fact called a false turkey tail mushroom. And I think that's really funny. It's like, it looks a lot like this thing, but it isn't. So we're gonna name it not turkey tail. I love the creativity. But in fact, it is inedible, meaning we cannot eat it, even though its cousin, the one that looks just like it, is very edible and very good for us. So if you see one that looks like turkey tail, make sure you're doing your research and maybe just don't pick and eat mushrooms that, unless you're really aware of what you're picking.